Katie Eeks, who is a bass player and teacher from Alaska. I've had her on the podcast before. She posted a wonderful request for advice for an aspiring double bass professional. So that's obviously a topic that has resonated with people. It's also something that I've talked about at length. I wrote a book many moons ago about freelancing on the double bass and regrets and how I felt like I was maybe sold a bill of lies to an extent, though I actually regret nothing and I wasn't sold a bill of lies and it's complicated. But I thought to change the pace for this channel that I would riff on this topic and my current thoughts here in the middle of 2024 and how those have evolved over the years from being an aspiring double bassist myself to a music school student at Northwestern University, bachelor's and master's, to a freelancer, to attempting several times over the years to set fire to my career and get out of bass, and bass keeps pulling me back in. And when people ask me these days, what do I do, for better or worse, I say I'm a musician. And if I have to define it further, I just say I'm a bass player. And that kind of leads to all the other threads of my professional life. I had a moment of clarity, we'll call it that, in 2016 when I went to the NAMM Show in Southern California for the first time. And it made me realize how small my experience in the music world has been and how I've lived this entire, I find, quite fulfilling career in the music performance world. So I thought back when I was maybe this student's age, Katie's student's age, that really you could play the bass in a symphony orchestra or maybe jazz, or maybe you could teach, I don't know where, at a university, maybe some private lessons. I took private lessons. And I knew that there were public school teachers. Reflecting on that time in 2016 at NAMM, just realizing how many and varied the careers of a musician or someone in the music world or music industry or associated with music could be. Around the time of going to that NAMM show, just a little bit after that, I met a fascinating musician named Seth Haynes. He wrote a book called Break Into the Scene. This book really broke down in a tangible way some of the many opportunities that there are to have this instrument or a similar type of instrument in your life. I found myself in my 20s becoming more and more bitter and cynical about the prospect of being a musician. And there's a lot of reality to what I was thinking. I wasn't wrong. I was being pessimistic. And I think that just like being rose-colored glasses and Pollyanna about everything, it's not necessarily going to change your reality. But I do think that there's much more. That's why I love my personal experience of going to the NAMM show and then getting into Seth Haynes' book. There were some really interesting perception challenging moments for me, just really questioning what I assumed you had to do to be a successful bass player or double bass player. I have bass in my life and I live a multifaceted life that includes performing, and it always has. And I've always played symphonic music, which is what I always wanted to do. It hasn't been exactly like I thought I would do it, but it's probably exceeded my ambitions as a 21-year-old. If you told 21-year-old Jason that 48-year-old Jason would be doing the work he's doing, he would have been thrilled. It was certainly not the path at all. And I remember digging out this hilarious piece of paper that said like 1 year goal, sub with major professional orchestras, something like that. 3-year goal, be in a full-time professional orchestra. 5-year goal, be in a top 5 or top 7, whatever. The only thing I achieved was subbing in groups, and certainly didn't achieve anything else. But I feel like I've actually achieved a lot. It just wasn't the path I thought. So my advice, which I did see in some of these comments, is just take those doors and open them a little bit in terms of what you think you might do with this. One complicating factor, and it's always been a factor, but it's certainly more of a factor now in 2024 than 1994, when I started my undergraduate, is the cost of music school. And we might call it the insane cost of music school. And we might also call it the insane cost of music school when you factor in the earnings that you're likely to make. Now, there are no certainties in this world. And of course, some of the most successful people out there are musicians, maybe not classical or jazz double bass players, but there are some very successful ones, of course. But it's not like other careers where there is a predictable or relatively predictable salaried job waiting for you that will more than make up for the investment in music school. But I do think it's a complicated question. Do you need to go to music school? Heck no. Or for any discipline. Does it make it easier? Yes, in many ways. Networking is part of it. Of course, I am still tapping that network that I started in 1994 when I moved to Chicago and went to Northwestern. I certainly learned lessons from teachers that I may have encountered by creating my own musical experience, but probably wouldn't have. I also think that meeting people who could be potential great teachers for you is super duper important. And this is a little more challenging in Alaska than here in California or other parts of the United States or Europe. But going to a bass event near you is one of the best things you can do for meeting some of these future teachers. These are great opportunities to meet people that are active, that are playing, that are teaching. And even if you don't study with them, you'll get on their radar and they will probably be able to help connect you with somebody that fits your needs. My next piece of advice is to have your default answer be yes when an opportunity presents itself. At a certain point in your career, you will probably say no to more things than you say yes to. But when you're starting out and when you're early on, say yes. Say yes to playing in that bluegrass band. Say yes to playing in jazz ensemble. Say yes to the combo program. Say yes to contemporary music ensemble. Say yes to your friends who want to start a jam band. You never know what's going to connect with you. You never know what experience is going to launch you to that next level. You never know who you're going to meet when you're 15, when you're 20, when you're 25, that is going to be the person that connects you with the next opportunity in your life, or the person that inspires you to go where you didn't think you were going to go, introduces you to somebody. You just never know how the network is going to work. But saying yes until you're so busy you can't say yes anymore, that is what I would recommend just about anybody starting out do. The next piece of advice I got from Diana Gannett, wonderful professor of double bass emeritus at the University of Michigan. And I recall her answer being something along the lines of, what do you have on your mind when you wake up? What, when you wake up, fascinates you? Chase that. It'll probably work out. And I think that is great advice. What keeps you up at night when you wake up in the morning? What's on your mind? And how about trying to make your career into that? Doing the podcast has been a huge education in so many ways for me. But one of the big takeaways is that if you are really into something, you can probably make a career out of that. It might not go exactly like you think, but it will probably work out somehow. I've talked to people who do some pretty niche things that certainly no one was waiting in the wings for them to just offer them this job when they graduated from music school or whatever. And if you treat it like a job, you might be surprised how often it really does work out for people that really give it their all and chase what fascinates them. Another bit of advice is to get out of your bubble and really participate in your community, in your musical community, in your artistic community. Being at Northwestern and being in that practice room and just walking around and seeing who was just always in the practice room and never did anything else. All they did was practice. Friday night they practice, Sunday morning they were practicing, Wednesday at 2 p.m. they were practicing. Those people, most of them, I didn't really hear about them after music school. But the people that, and obviously you have to work and you have to practice. We'll get to that in a moment. But the people that put the bass away and went to see the Chicago Symphony on Friday night, went to the Jazz Showcase on Saturday night, went to their fellow students' recitals, said yes to playing in the kind of annoying chamber piece that one of your friends was doing. People that actually participated and went to concerts and soaked in different influences and went to the Art Institute and took a walk along the lakefront, not to the exclusion of practicing, but being a little more well-rounded and curious. Those are the people that seemed to click with whatever it is that they were chasing. My last bit of advice is to work on your craft like a professional. I'm a big fan of Seth Godin, wonderful writer and marketer. And Seth talks about being a professional versus being an amateur. The professional sits down and works on their craft, whether or not they want to. It's 9 a.m. on a Monday, it's time to work. And I'll tell you, that's what I do here on YouTube. That's what I do on the podcast. That's what I do in my double bass practicing. I broke up my bass and practice my technique routine for about 45 minutes before recording. It's just part of what I do, is working on what needs to be worked on and being consistent and showing up and being organized. It's actually understanding that this is a long-term process and that we chip away at it every day and we make small gains every day. That's what I would advise a young person do. And again, the people on that Facebook community thread said it way better and way more succinctly in a lot of cases than me. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave a comment below and we'll see you in the next one.